Well, you heard him. It's like Charlie's final wish is for you to buy Josh Hammer's book. I mean, it's like, hey, he literally says, like, his last thing he said to me actually was like, I'm just going to plug your book out. And then at 9:09 p.m., again, we're talking Eastern, Josh Hammer tweets in favor of public execution, and there's no context that is provided. So anybody telling you he for sure meant this or he for sure didn't mean this is a liar.
Candace Owens just revealed the truth about Charlie Kirk's final 48 hours and revelations after several key Zionists that were close to Charlie Kirk actively lied about his turn against Israel just 2 days before his assassination. And in this clip, she gets into some of the other weird things some of those people did, including Josh Hammer, that haven't even been revealed yet. So let's just watch. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
For weeks after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Josh Hammer obsessively and shamelessly accused people of lying, people of grifting, people of attempting to destroy Charlie Kirk's legacy. Charlie Kirk was his friend, he claimed rather maniacally, that Charlie never once flinched on the topic of Israel. He died just loving Israel. It was like, are you kidding me? That's all he cared about. Check out just some of these tweets, by the way. This is a collage. We just don't have all day here to gather crazy Josh Hammer tweets, but you get the idea. There is a repulsive op right now to hijack Charlie Kirk's legacy. There is a repulsive op right now desecrating Charlie's memory by trying to posthumously convert him to Groyperism.
My favorites in the lower left, as I've been saying repeatedly, Tucker, Candace, and other bad faith actors are lying through their teeth about Charlie and Israel. Well, he's looking in a mirror because he's the liar here. He remained silent as he knew as part of that text conversation that Charlie Kirk literally said, I quote, have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause.
I believe there's something known as Groyperism. I was given access to this letter a few months ago, and I read it at that time. Tucker, Candace, and other bad faith actors are lying through their teeth about Charlie and Israel. Candace Owens and other grifters, you get that back up for a quick second. Candace Owens and other grifters are trying to posthumously rewrite and hijack the legacy of the great Charlie Kirk to further their patently evil ends. There has been a repulsive op. The reality is simple. Charlie was a bridge. Like, it's weird that he keeps repeating that sentence. Like I said,
He did. He pasted that sentence so many times. It's like the NPC meme with the bubble over their head, saying the same thing over and over and over. Remember, like, sharp as attack, sharp as attack, sharp as attack. You know, at some point, people aren't going to trust you if you just repeat the same tireless propaganda.
Maniacal, obsessed. And of course, in the comfort of his own derangement and with the full support of the press and the silence of Charlie's other quote-unquote friends, Josh was really acting the part of a true Pharisee. He was certain that the truth would not rise again. He was so confident that he had killed it and that he could himself hijack the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Except the truth did kind of rise again. It kind of always does rise again. And the world now knows that Josh Hammer had personal, intimate knowledge that Charlie's views were changing. He lied about the Hamptons meeting. I've told you the truth from day one. Seth Dillon and Josh were personally upset with Charlie's defiance against the state of Israel. Seth Dillon was the more vocal of the two parties in the Hamptons, as I said, in terms of actually pressing Charlie. But both of them were upset about the way that they saw his viewpoints shifting. And Tucker was therefore correct at Charlie Kirk's memorial. It was definitely the correct analogy when he spoke about these sorts of individuals who plot and lie and think that they are going to be successful in, well, murdering the truth in the story of Jesus Christ. Take a listen.
Charlie would have loved this, not just because he loved large groups of people, but because ultimately he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us. We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I could just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Everything is inverted, and the Beatitudes tell it, I think, the most crisply. Everything is sort of the opposite of what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And that's exactly what they tried to do, these Zionists that were close to Charlie Kirk, I think 8 others outside of him in this chat group, remaining silent when he literally said he was forced to leave the pro-Israel cause. And not only that, but because of this pushback, this pooled $2 million donation, that he was going to not try to ease tensions, not try to balance it out with a debate, not try to include more Hasbara propaganda in his organization, but invite Candace Owens. It's not what you do if you want to please the Zionists when they're up in arms over you. And they remained silent while she was being smeared, by the way, over this. But the truth got out, and I don't think it would have gotten out without Candace Owens. So regardless of what you think about her investigation, her leads, her assessment of the FBI's case, she is making truth in this area. She is setting the world in a truer course regarding Charlie Kirk's final hours, despite all the lies that people like Josh Hammer have told about it, and told about it repeatedly.
That is a fact. It will always be the opposite of what you think it's going to be when you are attacking people who are telling the truth. And the truth is that it is now an established fact, like I said, that Josh Hammer knew that Charlie Kirk's perspectives on Israel were changing. And since that announcement, Twitter users pointed out a very strange tweet that Josh Hammer hit send on 16 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. For no apparent reason at all, he retweeted something that President Donald Trump had sent a full 12 years ago about public executions. Here it is. Here is that retweet. Trump wrote on April 19th, 2013, should be public execution for all to see. You will end this bull fast. And Josh Hammer just replies and says, based, you can see.
I mean, just think of this. Without context, we won't fully know the truth, but you had to admit this seems really odd in consideration of the future. And Josh Hammer can't tell the future unless he somehow was privy to a murder against Charlie Kirk. But man, this is incredible too. Just another star that's aligning up with this narrative, that all these weird aspects of this case that draw us into different directions, make us consider other alternatives. The Israel Did It crowd is having a field day with this. I mean, I have to admit, this looks, very zany, man. And he could be referring to something else, I guess. I mean, I guess that's going to be his response. He's going to say, hey, I meant talking about executions of Qatari officials or something, because he did celebrate that in Doha. But man, you have to admit, there's something here. This is a story, and especially Charlie Kirk's text, which again, I don't think would have been released without Candace Owens, without her being a bloodhound, just fiercely committed to sharing the truth about this when so many people close to Charlie were willing either to cover it up, lie about it, or remain silent, despite her being drugged through the dirt and being told, hey, no, you're an idiot. Charlie died a martyr for Israel. Give me a break.
We are in Central Time, so that's about 9:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, what is the justification for this? There might be one. I tried in earnest to at first rationalize it, right? What could have been going on that Josh Hammer decided to dig through the 2013 Twitter archives and retweet someone calling for a public execution? Well, I'll let one of the many Zionist PR agents explain it first. Yashar Ali, who, like I said, is quite literally paid to do PR for Zionists. I know this personally, on the right and on the left, tried to explain it away by kind of lying, I would say. He tried to claim definitively that Josh was referring to the criminal who horrifically murdered the Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zarutska, in North Carolina. That was obviously a big story in the beginning of September. Yashar Ali wrote this. Last night, Candace Owens tweeted notorious neo-Nazi Sam Parker, who pointed out that Josh Hammer, who is Jewish and was a friend of Charlie Kirk's, elevated a Trump tweet from 2013, the day before, which called for public executions. Candace, of course, would like people to believe that Josh's quote tweet is suspicious in the context of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But Josh was just sharing what many conservatives were sharing and stating the day before. That's because they were talking about the horrific murder of Irina Zarutska.
I mean, to be as charitable as possible here, that is right. That was a major story, and many people on the right were talking about this and speaking this way as if, that was a horrific murder. No one can disagree with that, by the way. If you saw the footage, it was horrifying. Don't watch that footage of that murder, by the way. Caught on the subway or the train, can't remember which one it was. But it's just one of the most horrifying things imaginable, because after being stabbed, she looks up at the killer, realizing, she's going to die, and being totally horrified in her final moments. I mean, it was so terrifying. Charlie actually talked about it on Twitter before he was murdered. This was a major story, so I'm just saying that's a consideration here without knowing more.
This is where I say that no civilized nation uses the death penalty, in parentheses, referring to his own thoughts. Now, another user then jumped on that and tried to establish a non-fact that the footage of Irina's murder was released on that day, on the 9th, and that's why Josh tweeted that. All of this is factually untrue, okay? Irina was murdered on August 22nd. Her perpetrator was arrested that same day, and the footage was released and trended on X on September 5th. Josh himself sent multiple tweets regarding the homicide, as everyone did, because, like I said, it was trending. And when he was asked specifically about punishment, criminality, perhaps that her perpetrator should face, Josh, at no point that I could determine, whether he was on the news, whether he was on his own show or anywhere else, did he speak about the death penalty or, a public execution.
Yeah, I mean, plausible. This did happen, 2 weeks in advance of Kirk's murder, and then that video only got disseminated, it sounds like 4 days before his murder. So I guess we won't know or have any indication of where Josh sits on this, if he responds to this thing. And by the way, if I'm him, I'm probably being pretty quiet like he is right now. He's disappeared off X. Can't exactly, blame him for that, because he's been exposed as a total liar, but we'll have to see what he says about it.
Instead, as you will see, and we will show you Josh in his own words, he spoke about the double standards surrounding the media coverage of her murder and really the topic of criminality more broadly and safety in America. Take a listen to what Josh said.
Gabrielle, I'm a lawyer by training, and I remember my first year of law school back in 2013 when I was taking criminal law. This is kind of the beginning of kind of the left's kind of foray into so-called criminal justice reform. And even back then, there's a lot of chatter among my more liberal classmates about how, incarceration and prisons and locking people up, how all of this is just racist. It's kind of like it is an old kind of symbol of a white patriarchal, colonialist, imperialist society there, and how the ultimate goal is basically to defund the prisons. And then, if some people are going to commit some violent crimes, essentially let the chips fall where they may. Well, this is letting the chips fall where they may. But most American people have not lost their minds. Most American people stand where Donald Trump stands, which is that they want basic safety. And
I don't disagree that we all want basic safety. I just don't hear him. And like I said, I've looked for it ever even calling for the death penalty in those days that were leading up. So I decided to do what I always do. Rather than say what he definitely meant or what he didn't mean, I decided to just create a micro timeline of Josh Hammer's tweets. And it gets pretty interesting on September 9th, the day before Charlie Kirk's assassination. This is what Josh Hammer tweeted. He tweeted a total of 9 times on September 9th, and you can gather what was going on at that day from his tweets. He wakes up at 7:30 a6, or rather pushes the first tweet at 7:36 a.m., and he tweets about a viral Phillies crowd scandal. This is in Eastern Standard Time, by the way. Right after that, he tweets a link, the one that I just showed you, to his media appearance about Irina Zarutska, where he does not call for the death penalty or anything close to the death penalty. 9:23 a.m., he tweets against Tucker Carlson, because he has to do that at least twice a day, or I don't.
It's like eating for him. He needs it for sustenance, right? It's like sleeping or eating, or the thing that sticks out to me is the 5:58 p.m. tweet. He tweets about the Hebrew Bible being the basis of Western civilization. Isn't he an Orthodox Jew? That confuses me if he's talking about the Hebrew Bible being the basis of Western civilization. But I don't know where he stands on this. And I can't see anything from the clip that says he wasn't referring to Arena's murder in that video. It doesn't by omission mean that he wasn't talking about that in the tweet, but not in the interview. But at the same time, I guess this is helpful to get context. I'd like to hear from Josh. I don't know that we'd be hearing from him in quite a while, though.
Feel like he can get on with his day. 9:29 a.m., he tweets in favor of Israel and throws shade at Trump and Qatar. And all of this is related to what went on September 9th, which is that Israel bombed Qatar for no reason, violating international law, which they tend to do a lot. But he, of course, was in favor of what they were doing. And so he throws shade.
Of course he was a proponent of bombing the hostage negotiators in Doha. Because, of course, you can predict this to a T. There's two anti-Tucker Carlson quotes, right? There's one promoting him. There's one, throwing shade at Qatar, and one about the public execution. Like, you can pretty much script this guy out at this point.
At Trump and Trump's relationship with Qatar, because I guess it would be okay for them to violate international law if Trump wasn't friends with Qatar or something. 11:33 a.m., he tweets against Saudi Arabia because they came out and made a statement against what Israel had done. So he tweets against Saudi Arabia. And then at 3 o'clock p.m., he tweets against Tucker Carlson for telling the truth about Israel and 9/11. Again, he has to do that a couple of times a day. It's part of his ritual. 5:58 p.m., he tweets about the Hebrew Bible being the basis of Western civilization alongside a speech that he had given, tweets a link out, again, promoting himself. 5:59 p.m., he tweets a promotion of his media appearance regarding a Supreme Court decision. And then there's this 3-hour break. He puts his phone down, maybe this is a 3-hour break where he speaks to Charlie Kirk. I don't know, but I know that he speaks to Charlie Kirk at night. And then at 9:09 p.m., again, we're talking Eastern, Josh Hammer tweets in favor of public execution, and there's no context that is provided. Don't forget.
Whoa. The only way he set his phone down, let's just be real because Candace is omitting some evidence here. The only reason he set his phone down is to complain about the outgrowth of anti-Semitism. All right, let's be real. Or to complain more about Tucker Carlson or Qatar or Candace Owens, or to spread more propaganda that, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for Israel. I guess that came later, but you know the drill.
He proudly went around and he promoted to everyone that would listen that he spoke to Charlie the night before he died, probably in that 3-hour window. He bragged that he and Rabbi Wolicki had a Zoom call with Charlie. Why? Because they said Charlie wanted them to help him with his talking points about Israel. Now, I have to say, Charlie was one of the most skilled debaters ever, like literally ever. Any person that I have seen actually debating on stage, I learned my debate cues from Charlie Kirk. So it is very new to me to think that they scheduled this call because he was in need of tips on debating from a rabbi over in Israel and Josh Hammer. But let's be real, I have no proof to the contrary because I wasn't on the Zoom call.
Yeah, he was a skilled debater. There's no question about that. He was known for that. He made a mark for that. He was in a South Park episode caricatured for that, so there's no doubt that's true. It is possible that he wanted talking points from people close to this issue to be able to kind of solidify his arguments, I suppose, but I can see this the other way too, that it wouldn't make sense, especially because the timeline has him actually turning against Israel, saying that message. I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. That's verbatim from the leaked screenshots that Candace Owens provided and were confirmed by Turning Point USA. And, after that, you would still want pro-Israel talking points. That doesn't make much sense to me, right? Because it was about 48 hours. I think it was actually something like about 44 hours in advance if we go by the timestamps and just assuming that the timestamps were Eastern, I think. I'd have to go back and check that, but it might have been 44 hours in advance. And then he still wants pro-Israel debate tips from Hammer and Rabbi Wolicki later. That doesn't jive with me too much, but I don't know. I can't wait to see what Josh Hammer says, how he tries to spin this. I mean, he's a liar, and the record reflects he's a liar. I got no respect for that guy. But we'll have to see how he tries to spin this, man, because a lot of people are having some problems after a day of calling this fake and then Turning Point confirming it, and basically multiple parties acknowledging that it's legitimate without a reason to. I'm sure they would love to shove this under the rug, especially the Zionists among them. But now we know the truth, and again, it's because of Candace Owens.
And Josh made it clear multiple times that in his last conversation with Charlie, above anything else, was really interested in Josh's book. So much so that in his literal first tweet, after news broke that Charlie had in fact died, Josh manages to bring up his book. I'm not kidding. Here's his tweet. He writes this. I am speechless, devastated, and heartbroken. We spoke less than 24 hours ago. Charlie joked how he was going to plug my book on this very tour. He was a unique force, a generational leader. Pray for Charlie's beautiful wife and their young children. Rest in peace, warrior.
He can't help but to promote himself in the death of Charlie Kirk. And I get it. If that's your last memory, that's your last memory, but it does look in bad taste for that to happen. And I think he talked about this in interviews that he got right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He couldn't stop talking about his book and how much Charlie Kirk loved it, which maybe Charlie Kirk did like his book a lot. But I have a sense that that's probably in poor taste once your friend died. And I don't think he was his friend, or at least Josh Hammer didn't think of him that way. He was willing to remain silent or lie about the fact that he had turned against Israel. Candace was right about that. She proved it to the world after daring them to lie and say that he didn't do that. And when they were silent over the weekend, I had a sense that a big bombshell was coming. That's exactly what happened. As she was being dragged by the dirt, by him too, by Josh Hammer in those tweets that Candace showed, he lied to try to claim the legacy of Charlie Kirk for his favored side in the Israel issue. Just think of that. You're using your dead friend to further your own political ambitions and political perspectives. That's pretty low, man. That's the lowest of low, if you ask me.
And as you saw yesterday, Josh never forgets to plug his book. He never once forgot to plug his book. A few days after Charlie's death, he went on JTV, which is on the global Jewish channel, to discuss that last call with Charlie further with a host named Ali. And here is what Josh says about his book.
We actually did speak for the last time less than 24 hours before the assassination happened. We had a Zoom call, a friend of mine, him, a couple of his producers. It was a small call. We were literally talking, above all, about the anti-Israel questions that he expected to receive on this campus tour. And we were kind of talking him through talking points and strategy and how to deal with these expected hostile questions. And you held on my book, Israel and Civilization, Ali. The last words I think Charlie spoke to me were, he literally said, Josh, when the Israel question comes up, I'm just going to plug your book, Israel and Civilization, because I think that what you read in the book basically is how I feel as well. And
you can't
that
make
ends up
it
being
up.
the last time that we spoke.
Well, you heard him. It's like Charlie's final wish is for you to buy Josh Hammer's book. I mean, it's like, hey, he literally says, like, his last thing he said to me actually was like, I'm just going to plug your book. What he wanted to do on his tour was just to plug Josh Hammer's book. And it's so sad that he never had the opportunity to plug Josh Hammer's book.
I'm sorry for laughing because this is horrible, but it's just so pathetic I can't help it. And even if that was true, even if Charlie Kirk really did love Josh Hammer's book, talked about, hey, I'm going to plug it on this tour, man. Trust me, I'm going to do it even, 24 hours after saying that I turned against the pro-Israel cause or whatever it was after that. Even if that was true, man, I would feel kind of ashamed and frankly embarrassed if I put that into an interview like this to try to make it about me, make it about my entrepreneurial pursuits. And I see nothing wrong in trying to market or sell your book, but doing it in the shade of your dead friend whose corpse isn't fully cold yet, that is pretty sadistic if you ask me, man. So the behavior of some of these fools is just that. And it's been exposed so hard by Candace Owens here. And it's not just him. Rabbi Wolicki is another one that was on that call. Candace talks about that in the full episode, as was Rob McCoy, who she talked about yesterday too. So it was multiple people around Charlie Kirk, Zionists, that he had in that chat group that were exposed to his message. And again, I said this yesterday, but I don't buy the fact that, oh, they weren't privy to that message. They just didn't check their phones that day. I think if their friend died, they would go back and double check to see what was on their phones. At least Andrew Kovlet admitted that. He was on the group too. So I think we know 4 people from that group. There's 4 more we don't know, plus Charlie Kirk. I hope Candace Owens spills the beans on that, man, because I would like to see how some of these other people behaved. Either silence or obfuscation or lying, you know, considering him and purporting that he died a pro-Israel martyr, because that's what we were told by a lot of these people. And, you know, that one day time frame where they're like, this is a fake message, this can't be real, it's a Qatari Photoshop. It's just so pathetic, and there's so much egg over Zionist faces on this. They can't just keep pulling wool over all of our eyes when it's this obvious, this apparent. And I thank Candace, man, because she allowed these people to go on record lying before exposing this. And I presume she was taking some time to corroborate it, make sure it was legitimate, because, man, if I'm Candace Owens, maybe the 2nd biggest conservative influencer in the world right now, I would not want to ruin my life, ruin my reputation, and open myself up to all sorts of insane lawsuits by claiming this was real with so many parties involved, 8 other parties other than Charlie, you know, with crosshairs on me, lawfare crosshairs. It's not something I would have wanted. This was pretty obvious from the start that this was legit. I mean, there could be a question that it wasn't legit, but man, that would have imperiled Candace Owens and all of her future. And you can say whatever you want about Candace Owens, but she's not stupid. She's really sharp. And she has exposed these fools in so many ways, man. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know down below. Is Josh Hammer duplicitous? What does this tell us about the Charlie Kirk story? Is this a story regardless of how you feel about Israel's culpability in his death? Is this going to, you know, smear egg all over the faces of Zionists, make people lose even more affinity for and support for the pro-Zionist cause? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Candace Owens. Thank you, Candace. Awesome presentation. And if you like this video and my commentary, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below. If you do that, I'll give you the gift of being able to access each and every one of my videos before it goes live to the general public. Those are the members only videos. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.